It's the right time in Worcester, it's the right place. We're proud of our heritage and we love Mechanics Hall, Elm Park and all.
The folks you've led to meet, we find our civic pride of beaming wide on neighborhood streets. It's the right time in Worcester, it's the right place, and we thank you for carrying the Worcester the way we do. Hello, Worcester. It's April 11th. Hello, Worcester. It's April 12th, 2011. I'm Mike Benedetti. This is 508, a show about Worcester. This is Brendan Melican. Brendan, how are you today?
Excellent, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic. There's a ton of stuff going on today. We also have a pile of paperwork to look at. One piece of paperwork I want to look at right off is this Worcester Who Knew flyer. For those who believe that this was a slogan that we made up, no, in fact, there's an actual slogan called Worcester Who Knew.
I had no idea the city existed before this flyer came out.
Who knew? I love that slogan. I think that there are two big reported stories this week and one big unreported story this week. The bigger of the two reported stories this week is probably that there was a double murder in Worcester this week, said to be a drug deal gone bad by the police, and the family said, no, these guys were not involved with drugs. And we'll find out as time goes on and more information comes out exactly what's going on there. The other big reported story this week is, let me get my phone out here. I'll turn the camera on you while I'm getting my phone set up here.
Sorry.
What do you think about that flyer?
That's a great flyer. It's a free admission to the Ecotarium. Did you know that Kenda the polar bear is, I believe, 28 years old this year, and the average lifespan for a polar bear is 25 years. So if you want to get up there and keep your eyes on Kenda, that should go down any minute now.
I've never seen the Ecotarium.
I
don't even know where it is.
We got to do a show up there. I mean, you got to see Kenda.
Where is it physically? How could I have lived in Worcester for 9 years and never seen this
North
building?
High School. Yeah, so I mean that.
I don't know where that is either.
It's
Is there an east side of the city? Okay.
Yeah, there is. But so I mean, I think there has to be.
I know.
Geographically.
I'm just being silly.
I mean, we have an actual polar bear in the city of Worcester that lives inside a swimming pool. It's amazing. I mean, it's one of the most absurd things that the city of Worcester has going for it is this, aging polar bear that's just paces back and forth angrily inside of a swimming pool. I only imagine fantasizing about eating all the children that sit there and stare at her all day long. But
she's getting old.
She's getting old.
Just like
we can do a show. We can do a remote up at Kenda's tank.
We'll do it. So the story I want to talk about is that the city council had their photo taken, and apparently in the past it's usually been done sort of informally by journalists or something, and this time it was done by formal, actual Mike Nyman, actual photographer. Here's the photo, and I don't know if you can make it out here. The big scandal in this photo is that Mike Germain here on the side, just it's got this problem here with the shirt.
Button issue.
This button issue, and the problem is it's just basically this is just here's a big white flag to say, check out my gut, ladies. And this is not a good look. This is not, and everybody else here is pretty good. There's no pocket squares or anything. Nobody's trying to be fancy in these photos. Even, we should point out that he's sitting 2 seats away from the mayor, Joe Bryan. This is a man who hasn't slept in 18 years. It's kind of a miracle his jacket's not on inside out.
It's definitely a borrowed tie. I mean, yeah, the bar was very low for Mike. And
it's one of those little fake dicky kind of things that you're just going to put the collar and the shirt front on, probably. Still, if you're the sloppiest dressed person in a photograph with Joe Bryan, come on. So the question is, the controversy... Okay, go ahead, because I just want to say the controversy.
Not much mention of the leopard print that Connie's got going on in there as well.
Connie has kind of like a...
it's hard to tell what could be going on underneath that...
Connie's just got a shirt or maybe a little necklace or a little scarf thing right in there. Anyway, so the question is, the controversy... The point is not Mike Germain... whatever, has his shirt poking out, because who cares?
That kind of is the point, though.
The point. So the question, if that was all it was, it would be unremarkable. The question is, what is he doing wrong? And this is so. I have a jacket on here. Do you want to
hold this for a second?
Why don't you hold the camera
while you're buttoning?
So here, this is a 3-button jacket, right?
Right.
And so traditionally, you never button the bottom button of any jacket like this. this.
Right.
You could button it, but it's just an old-time thing that you don't do that. And all the jackets are designed so that you don't do that. They fall very nicely if you don't do that. So here I am sitting here, like in a sort of seated position, and like, okay, I have a little tie sticking out, so I'm actually going to put my legs together.
Yeah, I think that's the actual problem here.
So here I have a little tie sticking out, so I can just kind of do a little bit of this, and it will fall nicely. So I think the problem is that the photographer needs to say to him, like, you need to kind of do a little bit of this,
Pull it
If you got
together,
too much.
right?
And actually, this tie is maybe a little too long, so let's just do a little
tuck
it in.
Well, and again, what you're doing right now is the sort of thing that you would think a photographer would put together, right?
You would just say, Counselor Germain, get your thing tucked in there. So
Here, you take this over. It makes me nervous.
All right. So some people on the internet though, and you know how people are on the internet.
I know.
They
people
don't
on the
know.
internet.
They don't know. They're saying, oh, you should button the bottom button. I feel like this is not true. In fact, the other guys in the photograph not buttoning the bottom button.
If you're walking around, I think the bottom button is okay to be buttoned. But I mean, yeah, if you're seated, I mean that's because then the whole coat's going to rise up if you're seated. With
and
it.
I think he's buttoning the top button too. And I feel like the coat should be hanging naturally, and there shouldn't be any pulling or anything. But if there is any pulling, like this is probably only sort of levering it off of the middle button, levering the fabric off of the middle button. So maybe you should.
There really does appear to be some stress in play in the coat, though. I mean, the coat.
So this
looks
is exactly
stressed.
Hold,
I mean,
hold this a second more.
It reminds me. I don't want the entire world to see what your
Put my little
password is there. I mean, it does appear.
Here's a good shot. So can you look back here? Can you see this? So you can see that there's these pull lines, these like stress lines off this. So I think that this jacket is not. This could be another borrowed jacket.
It could be.
It could be from the same guy as Joe O'Brien, but I bet that Mike Germain wears a bigger suit size than Joe O'Brien. He's a bigger guy. All I'm saying is,
it could have been Barbara pulling on the back of his coat, though, too.
she's
Counselor
got.
Harler.
See, so let's look at this.
You can't really see where that left arm is.
Here's Mike Germain, kind of like, Barbara Haller's like,
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a setup.
This is like
election
that.
year,
This
man.
is like, you ever see that movie Blow Up, an Antonioni movie about photographic evidence? This is it.
That's it.
It's evidence of crime. She's got the back of his neck like a little kitten.
Pulling it, yeah.
Screwing his jacket. So, I'll give you, the one thing I want to talk about too is just, anyway, so I honestly feel like if you're sitting down, you should probably unbutton the jacket though.
Yeah.
Like you could also do, and I'll say, like, if you're watching this right now on Channel 13 or whatever, or you're not watching on Channel 13, go to a television, turn it on. Your chances are 50-50 that there's an episode of Law & Order on. Wait till the end, and Sam Waterston, you know Sam Waterston?
Yes.
Lawyer of Law & Order? He always does this on the show. It's so cool. Like, whenever he stands up, he does kind of like a this motion with his hand, just like absentmindedly, while he's like, isn't it, well, Mr. Whatever, I'm going to cross-examine you or something.
Right.
And he does this, and then when he sits down, there's just like a little...
It's acting.
All I'm saying is, it's acting.
But
If it's good enough
that's
for-
also one of those things, too, that I think a lot of men don't realize anymore, that just because you have a button and a hole to put that button through doesn't mean they're supposed to be connected. Like, if we look at the left side of your coat and the lapel there's a buttonhole there. And I'm sure there's somebody out on the planet who is, or I mean, it could be for a lapel, but a lot of like pea coats and whatnot will actually have, a collar that buttons across,
yes,
so you can pull the collar. It doesn't mean you're actually supposed to do that, right? And if you try to, you can get yourself all sorts of tied up. You'll end up looking like a 5-year-old who hasn't really figured out how the buttons line up on his shirt.
Yeah.
You don't need to go that far.
If it's cold, though.
That's now a historical document, and 2011 is not going to go down as a quality year for the historical viewers of the Worcester City Council.
They're going to look at that photo and they're going to say,
What the hell was the voters thinking?
I don't know. I wonder the same thing. Anyway, Mike Germain, that's just... I would like to have... I like this theory that it's the wrong size of jacket. There's two prongs to the theory. One is that the photographer needs to do something. The other one is it's the wrong size of jacket. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to have somebody... I don't know anybody off the top of my head who's built like City Councilor Germain. If you are or know someone who is, and you want to come on the show and do a little like criminal reenactment thing, let's make it happen. I would love to have you come on with a properly sized jacket and find out, because like I'm kind of like a little bit on the skinny side, so maybe.
Well, and there's also that thing too, where I mean, if you're standing up when I mean, most people are standing when they get dressed. It's very easy to make a suit that doesn't actually fit you look like it fits you, right? Like you can drop your waistline a little bit. You can pull the coat forward. You can play with your cuffs, so it looks like everything's put together. As soon as you sit down, everybody that's around you realizes that you're wearing a suit that does not fit. Your pant legs are up around your knees, and your coat's doing whatever Mike's coat is doing there. It falls apart quickly when you sit down. It was not a well-planned photograph.
I'm really happy we're both wearing ties on this show.
It ties the whole show together.
It does. So the third thing, which is the big underreported story of the week, and there's going to be a lot of me talking on the show, so you should.
That's fine. I'll
take
just
over
sit here and relax.
Is that there was a talk? And he's literally reading papers behind me. There was a talk at St. Peter's Parish Monday night. It was facilitated by Dr. Deborah Plummer, who is, I believe, the vice chancellor of diversity at UMass Med School. And she was there to talk about the beloved community, which is this concept which is most closely associated with Martin Luther King. And it turned out to basically be a talk about race. And it was very good. It was very well facilitated. It was the kind of thing where she stands up and says, like, let's all move to the front, and then we're a community, so let's have more a discussion than a lecture, which sometimes just becomes a big fiasco. And this time it was really good. Part of what I really liked about it was that I haven't been to a lot of talks about race. Most of the ones I've been at, it's either been, I've been one of the very few people, white people in a room of black people, or it's been a room full of white people and there's maybe one or two black people or whatever other race people. And this was a thing where there was a real mixture of Africans and African Americans and Latinos and immigrants and people born in the United States and plenty of white people and just like the whole deal. And everybody was sort of throwing out their view. And there were people of all kinds of, I would say, people sort of coming at it from all sorts of class background, too. There were some people who were talking about DNA, and there were some people who were like, I don't care what anybody thinks, that Richard Pryor is hilarious. And like people were, and it was great. And it really made me proud to be a Catholic. Like one of the places where the Catholic Church I feel is pretty functional is as an actual cross-class, cross-racial, international organization. And that was evident. The other thing that was nice, it was nice as a conversation about race in America, was that it wasn't like we're all here as part of some sort of amorphous progressive thing, or all here as some sort of amorphous thing called the City of Worcester, and like maybe tomorrow, like maybe this person I'm sitting here next to sharing my thoughts about being black or white or whatever, I'm never going to see them again or whatever. It was like, this is people who I'm going to have to deal with Sunday after Sunday, at the very least, for a long time to come.
Right.
And so it's like a real community, like, making connections that need to be made, and it was just good, like it was just a good conversation. So I don't know, like again, like people who have been to a lot of conversations about this stuff are not going to be like, oh, this is like the outstanding race conversation of American history, but I just really like that, and so I'm hoping that
I don't have anything. I wasn't there, so I don't have anything to say about that particular event. But I did notice last week's Worcester magazine there was a nice article about a professor over at Clark. Who's a transplant to Worcester.
Robbie Perry.
Who is revitalizing Worcester's chapter of the
NAACP.
Exactly, right. Which also seems like it's kind of nice thing that, I was actually shocked to read that the chapter had kind of dissipated and fallen off the map. It's nice to see somebody actually picking that up.
Yeah, it was interesting. Anyway, so that was the other unreported story of the week. What else we got this week? We got a ton of stuff coming up this weekend. The Firehouse Prom. If you need to go to this, you know about it, but the Firehouse Prom fundraiser is coming up this weekend. The Worcester Veg Fest is on Sunday. Man, oh man, we've wanted to have people come out and talk about the Veg Fest for months now, and the scheduling never works out. And tonight we were finally like, oh, we can do it. And they're all like, oh no, we have to go listen to Noam Chomsky talk. So, what's at the Veg Fest? Brendan Melican, Bruce Friedrich, who was one of the vice presidents of PETA for a long time, president of the Christian Vegetarian Association, Catholic worker. Sometime Catholic worker, is going to be speaking. Will Potter, author of Green is the New Red, who talks about vilification, legal and otherwise, of the environmental movement and animal rights people. Terry Hope Romero, who was the co-author of Veganomicon, and Isa Chandra Moskowitz's partner in crime, big celebrity among vegan chefs. Someone who we could have actually had on this show, except that because of our scheduling this week, I'm not around for her to be in town. I would love to talk to her about her ascent from cable access in Brooklyn to becoming famous vegan.
But Noam Chomsky will not be speaking.
Noam Chomsky is not going to be there. He may actually still be speaking.
At Clark.
If you've ever seen Noam Chomsky. He may still be there 4 days later.
In which case, most of the scheduled speakers for VegFest may not actually be able to make it. Because they'll all be still at Clark listening to him.
It's possible. Anyway, the VegFest is coming this weekend. It's great. If you went to the VegFest last year, this is going to be bigger and better than last year. It's at Worcester State, right? It's at Worcester State College University Center on April the 17th from noon to 5 p.m. It's a free event. There's food samples there. You should be able, I think, also be able to buy food there. There's probably going to be bands and things there. There's going to be like a circus thing. some sort of vegetarian circus is going to be there.
So it's a circus with no animals? Is that
I think it's a circus involving vegetables also.
really?
I don't
like
know.
the Fruit of the Loom guys
I,
instead of
I,
elephants?
I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to find
I
out.
have no idea.
Maybe you could go. I know you don't want to, but maybe you could go and
Maybe I could
find
go.
out for us.
We'll leave that as an open-ended question. Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, so that's pretty cool. It's Holy Week next week. Speaking of parish stuff, the Duck Yao, the restaurant Duck Yao, is opening up officially on Friday. It's actually opened up officially now, but they're having the grand opening on Friday. Did you ever eat at Duck Yao?
I've still never been there.
This was sort of run as a home restaurant
Right.
semi-illegally for a while, and then eventually that became untenable. At one point, they were actually working. They would do food delivery. They would deliver lunches, vegan lunches, and it was kind of incredible. I used to work downtown in a building, and I would have my lunch delivered, and it was worth it just to see people who were like a small boy on a bicycle is riding up and giving you lunch.
What's wrong with you?
Exactly, and I would be the same way if this happened in my building. Like I would be like, it's a mystery. How is this guy?
Whatever happened to the? Didn't we have a vegan burrito delivery service that was going on for a
Oh,
while?
they were doing it for a while. Greg Opperman was doing it for a while.
That was great,
They're-
okay.
they- I think that they just were like, this is not worth the while. But the Duck Yao also is apparently only going to be open for 1 year. This is their goal, 12 months, because they always did that just as a labor of love, and it's just crazy inside. It's fantastic inside. Just the decorations are crazy and fun and delightful and wonderful.
Location?
I think it's like at 872 Main Street. It's when I went there the other day, it still had no actual exterior signage. It just said Hong Kong Buffet or whatever the place that used to be there.
Okay.
It's almost right across from St. Peter's Catholic School. It's like right across the street
sure.
on Main Street, right around that area. Maybe like off of Oberlin Street in there. Anyway, you people, if you need to know where it is, you'll know where it is. Otherwise, you'll see it in Worcester Magazine, I'm sure, or something. They'll run an article. We got a big pile of paper here. Other stuff that people suggested this week is that we should talk about the closing of the PIP. I don't know what to say. There's still a bunch of people hanging out on the street up to no good around the PIP, across the street, but the PIP is closed. Somebody wants to talk about city council races. We're going to do that in May. We're not going to talk about them this early. Somebody said, Jim May posted a thing on Facebook saying, new plumbing museum? And I wrote back saying, is there a new plumbing museum? Because there used to be a plumbing museum, sanitary plumbing museum in Worcester, and then they moved it to Clinton or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, there could be. And I was like, I don't know what this is.
Of course,
it was
there could be. I mean,
I don't
it
know
could
what
be
he was
anything.
saying. I just want to say thank you, Jim May, for increasing my sense of wonder about the universe. For being like, new plumbing museum? Maybe, maybe not.
Do you think there's any relationship between the closing of the failure of the plumbing museum in its past location and the dismantling of that AIDS and hepatitis B have not yet been controlled in the Piedmont area sign? Because they were neighbors. And that sign, I think, brought a lot of people into the Piedmont area so they could just look at that sign and say, my God, what the hell is going on down here?
part of that Manoog building in there is gone now, right?
Yeah.
They're like ripping that out. Like that area's all
Well, didn't
changing
the buildings
around.
next to it like fall on top of it or something?
I don't
or
know.
it was-
This is why you watch this show, because we're like, didn't this happen? We're like,
So you can listen to people make stuff up.
you know something? Worcester. Who knew?
Who knew? We don't.
We don't know. We've talked on this show about Clark University and this quid pro quo with the city, getting the city to agree that they're going to shut down Downing Street, which is a street adjacent to campus. It would sort of connect some of the off-campus buildings across the street with Clark in a pedestrian way if they could shut the street down. And there's actually opposition to this. I don't know who the opposition is, but there's definitely people organizing against this. I've asked people who is organizing against this, people who are at least familiar with the idea that this is happening, and they're like, I don't know. And the argument is it's going to hurt emergency services to the neighborhood. This cat is trying to get in. Not during the show,
Do you
though.
know this cat?
Sadly, yes. Anyway, just wanted to mention that there are people opposed to closing Dewey Street, or to Downing Street. I don't know if there's going to be any traction.
There are
for
people
this.
in Worcester who are opposed to the sun rising in the morning, though, so I don't know if we should put too much stock in
I don't know. I just mentioned this for my lifestyle of just finding out about stuff
that people are opposed
on the
to.
street. I just
Yeah.
found out about stuff on the street. Here's a big pile of paper, Brendan Malikan. You want to go through this with me? Yeah. Let's read that second. Here's the African Radiant. There's not too much local stuff in the Radiant. This is for the African community in town. But anyway, the Radiant is out this week. This is the St. Peter's. Oh, we should mention actually Happiness Pony. This is something that we've been working on for a while. This is a newspaper which myself and Sarah Asefa and Asa Needle are putting out. We're going to try to put this out monthly. We're not making any money off of it. We have ads, but we're not selling the ads. We actually have a financial statement in the back in case you're curious about circulation and all that kind of details. It's just all kinds of stuff. Go to happinesspony.com and you can find out more. And I don't know. So far, it's so good. You know, it's sort of funny to try to figure
I
out.
enjoyed it.
You did enjoy it. What was your favorite article?
I don't remember.
All right, you didn't read it.
I didn't read it. You left it in my mailbox. I read it the night that you left it there. I don't remember what I read in the Telegram today either.
Well, there you go.
Short attention spans in this country, man.
We're playing in the same level as the Telegram already. That's fantastic. This is the parish bulletin for St. Peter's. I thought that in the sense of serendipity, we could talk about this. The yearly appeal called Partners in Charity is happening. This is a thing where the Diocese of Worcester, which is like all the Roman Catholic churches in Worcester, is doing raising at the diocesan level, fundraising on the diocesan level, and trying to get the local churches to give them some money. The fish fry has been rescheduled to this Friday, because previously it was too snowy on the fish fry day to have the fish fry day. Monsignor Scollin's letter, fish fry was canceled due to snow. Flower envelopes. Maybe I'll just read Monsignor Scollin's letter rather than read all the individual things. We had an uplifting day of healing this past Tuesday. Thanks to all who came and participated. Thanks to Father John Savard, SJ, for his inspiring message. Thanks to Sister Ann for organizing this event. Thanks to Kathy and Kelly for the music, and thanks to Dave and Brian for all their efforts. This week, Dr. Deborah Plummer will be with us on Monday evening. We talked about this. Our fish fry was canceled because of the snow. We talked about that. Partners in Charity Appeal. This weekend we'll have more about the Partners in Charity Appeal. In a week we begin Holy Week. It's a universal retreat of the Church. We will gather and be moved. This Sunday we conclude the 3 important Gospels. We have heard about meaning in life, the reality of suffering, and now we hear of resurrection. The Gospel does not diminish the harshness of death. It actually and accurately portrays our feelings at the death of our loved ones. We are angry and hurting. We are perturbed. It also affirms the need to grieve and mourn. We cry and embrace each other. It also shows forth the promise of God and ultimately the glory of God. If you have a parish bulletin that you would like us to read on the show, just give it to me, and I'll happily read it. I'm not going to read this every week, but I feel like occasionally I'm going to read this stuff. This is Mother's News. This is Jacob Berendez's paper. Jacob is an apostate and now lives in Providence, but it's still kind of Worcester feeling. He actually has a really good article in here about Mardi Gras, which I'm going to post on Pie and Coffee. Probably my favorite article about Lent, actually, of all the Lenten season. Here's the In-City Times. Man, this In-City Times is kind of a screwed up issue once again. It's got 2 articles by John Manfredo about the schools. Like, come on, people. And it's got this big thing by Bill Randall called What Inspires You, Worcester? Bill Coleman, not Bill Randall. And it's basically, it kind of reminds me of the thing that Parade Magazine does once a year, where they have a bunch of people's photos, and they have like their name, profession, and how much they earn. And this is kind of like that, except it just has what inspires you. And pretty much everybody's inspired by family. And I'll tell you what I wish that I got from this more than just like dozens and dozens of people's photos, Brandon Melican, was like, what is the story behind the inspiration? Like, because the inspiration of family to one person is different than the inspiration of family to another person. I'm sure some of these stories are super inspiring. Just the word family or my band.
This guy has the future. I mean, is that even possible?
To be inspired by the future?
Yeah.
Sure.
Really?
Yeah.
All
What
right.
do you, Brandon Melican, doubting Thomas? Yeah, so this is just sort of like like I said, this is an article which needs to be like an ongoing series in the In-City Times where Bill Coleman really talks to people.
It looks like Paul Levinson from Tuckerman Hall is not inspired.
He's inspired. It just says Mr. Levinson.
Yeah, it doesn't.
He's inspired by himself. He's
This
inspired
guy
by
Gary
his
up here,
name.
too. Same thing. He's,
Gary Poland. Oh, I thought some of those people with their names under there were inspired
this guy's
by like
name is family, apparently. That's-
Colin. Is it Bruce Russell? No.
Wow, this thing just keeps going.
Man,
Now,
up the
is there a picture of Bill Coleman's beard in here?
No, there's no
Because
picture of Bill Coleman in there.
That yeah, it is right here,
Is that his beard?
and you can kind of see it. It's
Oh, really?
it's hazy. I was getting worried because I mentioned that beard
Oh, that's
a
kinda
couple
good.
weeks back.
Oh, it's
and,
kind of Santa Claus, or it's kind of Burl Ivesy.
Yeah, but when I mentioned a couple weeks back, I've heard from a bunch of people, like, making comments on my comment on his beard, and it got me worried that maybe he didn't have a beard, and I imagined the entire thing. Like, maybe I was starting to imagine Bill the way I envision him, and there it is, though.
It's looking good. You can't really tell on this.
No.
I shaved my beard off this week, and I regret that I did. Bill, keep your beard, and I'll regrow a beard, and we'll do it together, man.
This
And
is really weird.
It's just kind of like a bunch of people's pictures. But you know what? I don't know. This is also a good circulation thing. I think because people are like, hey, I'm in the In-City Times. You got to read
Well, it's
this
like the
issue.
Pulse, right? Yeah. I mean,
It is like the. Speaking of the Pulse, here's the Pulse of the Elderly, Vitality magazine, published by the same people as the Pulse, and with the same kind of advertorial kind of a feel. Like, for example, this week's cover guy is David Duddy Massad, And I picked this up thinking maybe this would sort of put the many controversies that swirl around him into context. No, it does talk about how much he weighs, and it talks about the next phone he would like to buy. So it is kind of he wants to buy an iPhone.
Oh, really?
It's kind of a weird article in that sense, but it's not really what it needs to be. I don't know. Anyway, but you know what? Again, much like the Pulse, I am not in the demographic to read a magazine called Vitality for senior citizens.
No.
So I am not going to judge it.
No.
I can tell you that it's a magazine that's not reaching down into people in their 30s. That's all I can tell you.
That is a really weird fest. The Eldercare 2011 fest. That's very reminiscent of the Pulse too. Like,
it's just some photos. Like, here's some people who were there.
That Eldercare fest.
They don't actually have that feature in here though. They don't have like the feature of like a double page spread of people's face.
No.
Which is kind of cool. I don't know. Anyway, so that was some magazines. You know, so I don't know. Like, I don't want to. And so, yeah, we have some different things coming on this week. I really like this Mother's News. I really like the St. Peter's Parish Bulletin. Some of these other things are not really aimed at me. Happiness Pony, I'm reasonably pleased with. It should be around. You should be able to pick this up if it's around. If you don't like it, or if you like it, you should email us and let us know what you think of the Happiness Pony. We're going to keep doing that for a while and see how it goes.
What else you got?
We're going to have a clip of people. This whole thing about why aren't people out there protesting the war against Libya? Why do people think that they want to protest Bush's wars but not Obama's wars? We'll just have this clip of people.
You know, I've been listening my commute in the morning. I listened to Peter Blute a little bit on the way in, and every single morning, that's how what he's talking about is how the hypocrisy with the left, because nobody is saying anything about any of the missteps that the Obama administration is making. And then, you know, when I get to work, I fire up the computer, catch up on the news and whatnot, and all you see is this giant this flood of people who would consider left-leaning criticizing Obama's missteps. And I can't for the life of me understand what the disconnect is with folks who are saying that nobody is out, in opposition to the things that the Obama administration is doing, or that there is not an equal amount of opposition that was out there with the Bush administration.
He's just doing it because now he knows that you watch the show.
Well,
He's
you know
like,
what
this
I
is
think
one
it
person I know listens to the show. I'm going to harass that one guy.
I'm starting to believe that it's really just more old people who have never figured out the internet.
I'm
just going to argue that Peter. I will make this statement. I do not think Peter Blute knows how to use Google. I think
come on.
He has no idea how to fire up a computer and actually look for something. So if it's not on the front page of the Telegram or inside his stock portfolio, it doesn't exist in his plane of reality.
These evening shows really got you in a testy mood, don't they, Brandon?
A lot of coffee.
I don't. Well, I have no evidence for this. Peter Blute probably watches this show.
He's a fine man.
I don't. He is a disgraced ex-congressman, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to use Google.
Speaking of which, last night redistricting meeting up at Clark. That was
really
probably one of the more boring public meetings that I went to. But
this is this thing about
congressional and state legislative redistricting,
right.
And it's very, very important. I shouldn't say. I mean, the folks that are on the board from the state are doing an incredible amount of work, but it's mind-numbing, right? Because you've got Democrats, trying to retain as much of their districts as they're currently drawn, so they can keep their seats when they're up for re-election.
Let me interrupt you here. So, for people who are watching this on television, thank you for watching 508. For people who are watching this on the internet, we're going to go a little long today. So, redistricting. This is so-called gerrymandering,
right,
of basically saying, like, here's a Democrat, and here's a Democrat, and here's a Democrat, or a Republican, or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're going to make a district which is like this, so that these three guys can elect themselves a Democrat. Meanwhile, all these Republicans are like, where are we? We're just out here.
And it seems like the loudest voice to really change up the program from where it is now is Paul Frost, who's the Republican state rep from Auburn.
Okay.
And he's looking for a north-south Worcester County district, which if you look at a map, makes perfect sense, right? You already got a county, why not use that as a district? But it's also just another form of gerrymandering, because anybody that's done the math on the way population trends have changed over the last few years, the entirety of Worcester County is red now. With the exception of Southbridge and Worcester, those are the only truly blue towns left. So it would actually make a lot of sense if you were a Republican state rep from Auburn to wish for a county delegation that was going to be red, right? I mean, it's all gerrymandering. It's all disingenuous.
So there's two issues I want to ask you, Brendan Milligan, political wonk. The first, or to bring up. So the first issue is this theory that it used to be that every U.S. representative represented however many people.
Right.
And then the number of representatives was frozen, and the population, meanwhile, got way bigger.
In 1929, that was the Reappropriations Act of 1929, which locked in forever the number of congresspeople at 435.
And with 100 senators, that's
And
535.
at that time,
There were less than 100 senators, though. Yeah.
for comparison's sake, at the time there'll always be the same number of senators until we start adding more states.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so at that time in Massachusetts, we had roughly 3 million. I think it was 3.4 million people at the last census. That'd be the 1910 census.
Yeah.
And now we have over 7 million. Right, so you've got the same for double the population. You've got, I mean, there's no way we have 10 now, but next year it'll be 9 Congress people, or the next cycle will be 9. There's no way 9 people can represent 7 million people. It's just absurd. So, and that's really the root of the problem, is that we should have over 800, Congress people now. I don't know where the hell you'd put them all. You would need to build a new capital, but it's the only way.
So Worcester
to
County
have...
should have a couple of Democrats and a couple of Republicans in
Yeah,
Congress,
and that
or
would
whatever.
make perfect sense. Like Worcester should always have if we're going to do the two-party thing, Worcester should always have a Democratic congressperson, because that's the voting trend of the city. But I mean, in a way, it is unfair to the surrounding towns that, for whatever reason, have become very red by people migrating out of the cities or choosing to live in those communities.
Right.
They're able to determine their own political futures on a very local level. But once they get up to the federal level, it's impossible.
Because they're never going to outweigh the city of Worcester,
Well,
or at least the way things
at
are
some point in
redistricted
time,
now.
They might, but yeah, for the most part, it would be really hard to offset that population distribution. So yeah, the only thing that you could ever really do is go back, revisit 1929, and remove that cap of 435 Congresspeople, and have an appropriate number, which isn't just so that Republicans in Sutton can have the representation that they want. It's also that you can have real diversity within the political spectrum too, right? I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we had Fiorello LaGuardia is my favorite example, progressive Republican. I mean, can you think of a single Republican that would ever think of using the word progressive as anything other than a pejorative now? But it used to be that we actually had die-hard lifelong Republicans who considered themselves progressives. But that's because that's what the makeup of their district wanted. It's perfect, and it makes sense. I mean, you could have, within parties, you could have real political diversity that would lead to, maybe actual discussion and debate in Congress. I don't know that that's what anyone's shooting for, though.
I'm glad you bring up LaGuardia, because he's kind of our patron saint of this show, just because people have heard me mention this before, that he's very famous during a newspaper strike in New York City, going on the radio every day to read the comic strip aloud over the radio, the daily comic strips from out-of-town papers, so that the children of New York City would be able to know what was happening with Little Orphan Annie or whatever, which is basically what we do on the show, which is
we named an airport
we
after
read you
him.
the newspaper, yes. So the other point that I often hear made is that there's no sort of objectively correct way to break up districts, to say, like, some people might say, well, Worcester County should have a representative. Right. Maybe you could say that because it's a pre-existing political division, fine. But other than that, there's sort of no just way to say, well, this is whatever. Like, this is the shape that the thing should be.
Well, and that's probably the best example, because while, yes, Worcester County is a geographical designation, and it once had a political designation to go along with it before we got rid of the county seat deal, we've been talking the last couple of weeks even about, Gabe Rollins, right, and, looking at the way the census really looks at municipal districts.
Right.
And if we're talking about federal level politics, it would probably make more sense to follow the patterns that the Census Bureau is already using to weigh urban areas or urban centers. And in New England, that's very different than just, straight up and down counties. So I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, how, when you look at Worcester, you're actually figuring in parts of Connecticut and actually all the way down towards Fall River, like we have now. Even though the district looks completely absurd, it reflects the...
Is that your phone?
It's my phone. It reflects the district exactly the way, or reflects Worcester exactly the way the federal government already looks at us from a census perspective. So yeah, I mean, it can't just be squares or blocks or whatever. I mean, it should make more sense it should make sense based on the voting population and what those people are actually looking for representation.
So you're saying that. Well, so I guess what I'm saying is, I guess I'm just trying to say that, like, there's no standard to judge against. No. Is what I'm saying. And so, in the absence of there being a standard to judge against, if there is, email us and tell us the standard, and we can have a discussion about that.
Yeah, well, and there's no standards nationally, right? You got 36 states that do things the way we do, where the state legislatures draw things up. You've got a couple states that use outside boards, non-governmental boards that draw these things up. Yeah. But what it comes down to is, because it's a fight over districting, it always becomes a game, and it's
Right.
whoever's in control. I mean, it's not just Democrats, right? I mean, Texas in recent history has some of the best examples of gerrymandering when it comes to dicing up Texas. Completely.
This is Tom DeLay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have districts that aren't even connected physically and whatnot to make sure that Republicans were able to hold seats.
These wormholes.
It's a game no matter who is playing it, unless you have, allow for growth within the number of representatives.
So this is figured out at the State House,
Mhm.
and this is controlled by the Democrats.
Currently, yeah.
Which is the time period we're talking about. So
Yeah.
this means that this basically means that Jim McGovern is going to get reelected.
Well, it means that he's probably going to hold on to his seat. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it'll be more of I don't have any inside knowledge on what those conversations are, but I mean, someone's going to lose their seat. They're currently all Democrats, so it's probably.
Oh, okay. So that's the thing is what are these? We have to have one
We
fewer.
get 10
we have to have
Congress
one
people,
fewer
all
district.
Democrats. One of them needs to find a new job.
We don't have any Republican Congress people.
Mhm.
Okay. We do have a Republican senator. I don't know if you saw that. In the
I
paper.
noticed, yeah.
Anyway, well, Merton, thanks for coming on to talk to
Thanks
us.
for
about
having
it.
me.
I love this. I love this thing where it's like that they changed the whatever. And you're like 1929. So of course.
Yeah.
Look, where are you? Of course. Anyway, this is a show called 508. We're on. This is just the internet is watching us now, so we can do whatever we want.
Okay.
We're on 7.
Put the camera down, just walk away. And...
Whatever. Just like. Check out these plants over here, guys. We're on 7 o'clock on Friday on Channel 13 if people want to watch us other times also, but 7 o'clock Friday is the most reasonable time. Yeah, check us out.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, thanks for being on the show.
Take
Everyone,
care.
thanks so much for watching the show. It really means a lot to us, and we will see you next week.